it clear that his invention is not covered in the country's aviation regulation, but he is still harbors hope for his invention. Chris, let's have a look at what our viewers can look forward to in just a few minutes. Okay, great. All right, Chris, there with what could be Kenya's first drone. That is a discussion you really do not want to miss. Plus, we will tell you about certain hills that were the perfect hideout for 3 African heads of state at the height of an uprising against the British colonialists. Saturday Night Live begins now with the highlights of the day's top stories.
Nikapata mmoja, watatu nikapata Kiambu, na wote walikuwa sawa.
Kiambu mother explains what happened in tragic death over 4 newborn babies.
Tumekubaliana na wale wote wafanyikazi wa serikali, mishahara yao imelipwa tayari.
If I, a member of parliament, has not been paid, what about a BOG employee?
The month of July wears on. What's the government offering public servants? Why we need the Chinese, President Uhuru's take.
Wanaume wengi sana. Unashangaa huyu mtoto amezaliwa hapa, tumemwona akisoma. Hasa imekuwa tena anaanza kuendesha magari.
And Taita Taveta's only woman taxi driver, inspiring story from the counties. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Linda Ogutu. We begin this newscast by once again taking you to Kiambu, where a mother lost 4 babies soon after birth in circumstances that remain mysterious. Today, Pauline Njoki talked to us at her home in Kiambu and gave us a heart-rending rendition of the few hours her babies enjoyed on this earth and what might have gone wrong. Here's KTN's Mashirima Kapombe with a report.
Pauline Njoki watches her daughter make faces next to her in their humble home in the county of Kiambu. Her eyes, however, reveal pain that only a mother can understand. The loss of quadruplets just hours after delivery.
Nikapata mmoja, watatu nikapata Kiambu, na wote walikuwa sawa.
That Wednesday night, Pauline says she rushed them to Kiambu District Hospital when she noticed the smallest one was not okay.
Ako kalikuwa kadogo, lakini hata ako kalikuwa na kilo moja.
At 1 p.m. the next day, she received news that her children were no more.
Kitu saa 3 nikaambiwa nikaona watoto, nikapata wakinyonya mikono. Kitu saa 7 tena nikaitwa. Nikasikia wakisema stima imepotea. Na ndio nipata watoto hakuna.
Yesterday, Pauline showed us her medical records that revealed she did attend prenatal clinic. But the medical superintendent at Kiambu District Hospital says she only attended prenatal care twice at 6 months and her babies were delivered prematurely.
Nilienda kliniki mara moja, ya pili nikaambiwa niende nipigwe scan. Ikuwa hiyo sasa kwenda hiyo scan ndio nilishikika nikiwa kwa nyumba.
Her family also claims the hospital has refused to give them a proper explanation on the deaths. And although the hospital has denied involvement, the medical superintendent says investigations into the matter is ongoing. Pauline Njoki has 4 other children, but what she wants now is to find out the cause of her children's death taken away from her a bit too soon. Mashirima Kapombe, KTN, Kiambu.
In another tragic incident, 5 people lost their lives in a road accident at Kikopey Trading Center in Gilgil, that is along the Nairobi-Nakuru highway, after a bus they were traveling in rolled several times. 45 passengers were injured, with 17 of them suffering serious injuries.
The CBS bus had left Nairobi City at midnight en route to Siaya with 61 passengers on board. But as the bus approached Kikopey Trading Center in Gilgil at 2 a.m. this morning, the driver is said to have lost control of the bus, which rolled several times. 4 passengers, who included 3 women and a man, died on the spot, while the 5th passenger died while undergoing treatment. Passengers say they noticed the driver had difficulties controlling the bus since they left Nairobi.
Kuna toll station nyingine inakuwa hapa Naivasha, kuna pump nyingine iko hapo. Alikuja tu akapiga press nyingine emergency kwa pump tu, pap, watu tukastuka. Mimi kuangalia nikajaribu kufikiria, nikaona huyu driver anaweza kuwa anajua hii barabara vizuri kweli, kwa sababu angekuwa huyu mtu anajua hii barabara vizuri, hangestukia kwa hii pump, angepita kwa hii pump vizuri.
The passengers say the driver had attempted to avoid a head-on collision with an oncoming vehicle while overtaking another vehicle before losing control of the bus. Gilgil OCPD Sarah Koki said initial investigations indicated that the driver was new on the route. All 61 passengers who were injured were rushed to Gilgil District Hospital and St. Mary's Mission Hospital. 21 of them were treated and discharged, while 41 were admitted. 19 others are in serious but stable condition. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Right, so the month of August marks the peak of the wildebeest migration spectacle at the Masai Mara Game Reserve. Well, earlier in the day, President Uhuru Kenyatta was among visitors to the world-famous Masai Mara Game Reserve. And the president, who enjoyed some time out in the wild, used the Mara setting to pitch for Kenya as a tourist destination to the more than 1 billion people in China. Rita Tinina reports on the government's latest strategy in efforts to reach out to non-traditional tourism markets.
At the world-famous Masai Mara Game Reserve, it is high season. This is the time they all come here to witness an annual spectacle, the wildebeest migration. But on this day, the president himself is here, his first visit to the Mara since he took office as president. A welcome escape from all the headaches of teachers' salaries, devolution and all. But even here, it was still work, even if with a little play. The president was here for an interview with China state broadcasters CCTV and Xinhua Radio, the latest strategy to try and market the country as a tourist destination to a large dragon in the east.
I'm also visiting China in the near future, and we have a series of events to market our country both as a tourist and an investment destination.
With rising competition and dwindling numbers from traditional markets, Kenya is now looking to tap into emerging tourism markets such as China.
Not necessarily just maintaining our beach and tourism, but also expanding into other areas so that we don't also over-congest our beaches and our parks.
The country is seeking to increase tourist numbers from the current 1.5 million, and China could make all the difference.
Wakiongezeka hata tuseme ya kwamba tunaweza kupata 0.1% ya population ya Uchina ifike hapa, hiyo kiwango pekee itatufikisha lengo letu la watalii milioni 5 kila mwaka.
And such efforts are already paying off. At the Mara Serena Hotel, we meet a group of 6 Chinese tourists. They're among 32 guests staying at the 156-bed capacity hotel.
It has been a dream to me to see animals in Africa, in this magic land in Kenya.
I'm here in my honeymoon.
Min Lin and Ida Shen say they learned about Kenya on television.
The animals crossing river from Tanzania, they come to Kenya.
In 2011, just over 37,000 tourists from China visited Kenya. Last year, the number grew to 41,000. And the government, which spends over 500 million shillings a year to market the country, will be banking not just on the latest campaign by the president, but also on ambassadors such as Min Lin and Ida Shen to keep the Chinese coming in their numbers.
I will tell my friends, they were very glad to hear. Yeah, it's a wonderful place.
For the 4 months he has been in office, President Uhuru Kenyatta has not hidden his desire to deepen relations with the East. And now he hopes that this latest speech from Kenya's most famous park will grab the attention of China's more than 1 billion potential tourists. Rita Tinina, KTN, on the banks of the Mara River in the Masai Mara Game Reserve.
Rita, Tinina, they're reporting on the president trying to pitch for Kenya as a tourist destination to the more than 1 billion people in China. Let's now focus on a man who benefited from education in China. That is Chris Galili, aeronautical engineer, the man who may have invented Kenya's first drone. Thank you so much for joining us on Saturday Night Live. You have an amazing, brilliant invention, Chris, but you can't really use it now, can you?
No.
Why not?
As I had said it before, I'd approached the KCA, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, but going through the regulations, Kenya aviation regulations, is not covered yet in aviation Kenyan laws. So they told me they are still working on it. So I'll have to wait until they set the laws governing flying of the UAVs in this country.
All right, the concern here, Chris, because we spoke to some of the officials from Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, and the concern is that your invention could interfere with manned aircrafts.
Yeah, basically that is true, but to me, as an aeronautical engineer, I went through aviation laws, and flight paths, I think I'm concerned with them, and I know all the flight paths in Nairobi. Having been in class like 5 years studying aeronautical engineering in different schools, going through different laws, and the same laws that we might use here is the same that I was using in China. So I know here even they can't come up with something new. It will be only, they'll be just improving on what is available. Yeah, so I know when I do fly it will be safe.
So if the laws have to change, what about the laws have to change to accommodate your invention?
Okay, what they should do is like give us an altitude of which we should fly our UAVs up to, because aeroplanes don't fly as low as rooftops. My drone is meant to fly over the roofs and do the recording, and maybe in the game reserve, and they should say to me where and how to fly and what time. Yeah.
All right, Chris, at the moment you're the only one who can manage this, who can control it really. And the concern is if you get the license and now this can be used in the Kenyan airspace, what about the training of the men and women who will now be in charge of using this?
Flying the UAVs or RCs requires an experience. I have experience doing this, 3 years experience. So, but with this, I've flown it 1 year. So I know I'm competent enough, and whoever is willing to train and learn how to fly UAVs can contact me, because I did it technically in school.
So
I can't offer it.
To train other Kenyans
I'm willing
to do
to train other Kenyans who are ready, but at a small fee, because I went through school at a very high cost. So maybe to some circumstances I can offer it for free, but if you're willing to pay, I'll be glad.
How long can it take, Chris, to train someone to use this? It took you 5 years?
It took me 5 years to get familiar with the UAVs generally, but we find learning how to fly this is so simple, but you must learn how to use the controls. This is my third control, as you can see. This is my fourth one. The first and the second one, I couldn't bring them back home because this is just part of my station. I had like, I would pack them in 5 boxes. Big boxes, that is, and that will take like a big space in the aircraft. So I decided to sell some and donate some before coming back to the country. So like whoever wants to train, he has to buy a control first. The first thing is normally to buy a control. Then we have a software in a computer where you can train, you fly like a simulation, the normal simulation for the big aircraft. So you can learn on simulator. After you're competent enough on simulator, we go on ground and you start doing your flights.
Okay, Chris, I let our viewers know that we're going to speak to you on Saturday Night Live, and some of them had questions. Don Sabwa on Twitter asked, why reinvent the wheels? Drones have already been invented.
Actually, it depends where you want to use it and for what purpose. In Kenya, they are still not popular. Like the DJI I'm using, it's very light, as you can see. And we can fly it even over Nairobi city to monitor traffic jams. In a room, the way you saw it fly here, in a wedding, parties, to record, it has a camera. So mine is basically used, we can use it home. Drones that are already in the market are big enough, and they're used for wars. They are programmed to go strike somewhere. and come back home. This can fly and come back home, but it can't go as far as going to strike somewhere because basically it's very light, so it can only accommodate the camera and the transmitter that is for transmitting the images on my screen here.
Okay, so Chris Diaz is asking, is this already in use? And if it's already in use, where is it already in use?
I think it's only Kenya we are still behind on UAVs.
No, in Kenya.
Countries are competing. So Kenya, I've not heard of it yet. I think I'm the first one who is bringing it in. And
no, have you sold it out to anyone? Is there anyone currently using it?
Not yet, because I just arrived in the country last weekend.
Okay.
So when I brought it in, I think you are the first people to host me with it. And I'm glad for that, and I'm happy for that. I appreciate a lot. And I'm planning to bring more. That is, it will depend on the market around. And if civil aviation can give us the regulations to govern it, I think you'll be seeing drones flying over the sports stadiums during the sports rallies, in the wild, covering the wildlife, and even in your studio.
You can use this.
Yeah.
Do you want to show our viewers how it works?
Okay.
Finally.
I will. The first thing is to... Now, this should transmit the images on my...
Yeah, because I know it has a camera. Just let it
drone.
go up. We see
so
how it
I just want today, I'll just show you how it flies.
Okay.
The first thing is you switch on the remote. After switching on the remote, I'll connect the battery. This is a lithium battery. I'll connect it. That alarm shows that the speed control that controls every propeller is set and ready and in a sound position. Oh, sorry.
No problem.
These are screen guard during sunlight.
Okay, so can we take off?
Yeah, there are tests that should be carried out. Before any flight of a drone, you should first locate home, where when it goes out of sight or it goes beyond your control, you just switch off the remote and you sit down and wait. It will come back and land from where it took off, because this light you can see, this is a GPS. It has a GPS capability. So this should sense satellites in sight. Like now, you can see different colors. It's green, 1, 2, 3, 3 reds and 1 green. Shows it has less than 4 satellites reception. So we are going to set this as home. The first thing is the first thing, I've initialized the signal. So we are going to take off. Should I take off from?
Yes, okay. Of course.
Okay, we are going to take off.
Yeah, I just want you to take off so that our viewers can have a look at how that
Okay, I'll put on my camera so that I record whatever is going on, and I'll put it in video mode, not photography. It can take photos and it can take videos.
Okay.
So today, I'm going to take the video of the studio where I am. And we start the engine. I'll request you.
Yeah, have to.
Then we want to fly. The room is quite small, but
All right, there you have an indication of what Chris can do. This is what could be Kenya's first invented drone. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Saturday Night Live, for helping us to understand what this is all about. He says he can be able to train Kenyans who may want to use it, who may want to know how this works. And of course, all he's waiting for is that okay, and that license from the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Saturday Night Live. And I'm hoping you could get your license as well, so you can see how this works.
I hope so. Thank you very much for hosting me.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to Saturday Night Live. All right, in a story that will see many public servants, teachers and their friends, relatives and critics scrambling for their standard on Sunday tomorrow morning, the government has released July salaries for public workers. But as revealed in your copy of the standard tomorrow, members of parliament, including senators and those in the National Assembly, will be rushing to the bank on Monday to collect millions of shillings each after the state released their salaries and car grants. This comes as Deputy President William Ruto assured government workers that the state was not broke.
After nearly 2 weeks of panic, the government has moved to assure its staff that their delayed salaries have been remitted. Deputy President William Ruto on Saturday said Treasury has dispatched money to pay up July salaries for civil servants.
Wafanyikazi wa serikali mishahara yao imelipwa tayari. Sasa kila mtu afanye sehemu yake. Anasema ya Kaisari mpatie Kaisari na ya Mungu mpatie Mungu.
Already the state was facing impending industrial action from nurses and the civil servants over their pay. The government attributed the delay in payment to a payroll glitch set off by reorganization of government structures. This to allay any fears that the state was running on a depleted account.
Kazi imeanza. Sasa tuko na pesa kwa CDF, tuko na pesa kwa county, tuko na pesa national government. Tutahakikisha kwamba kazi hii yote inaenda mbele.
But the newest and the largest single club of millionaires in the country will be the members of parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. The government has just deposited in the bank accounts over 2 billion shillings, not just for MPs' salaries, but also to cater for their car grants and loans. Parliamentarians were early this week up in arms over delayed payment of their privileges, refusing to go on their planned recess and instead adjourning their sittings till Tuesday next week. The MPs in the National Assembly also decided to delay the debate on the VAT amendment bill to protest the delay of their pay packs.
I tell you, even as members of parliament, we have not been paid salaries, allowances and anything. But I'm wondering, if I, a member of parliament, has not been paid, what about a BOG employee?
If it is a clever way of trying to make sure that the money meant for devolution is reduced, we will fight it in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution.
Meanwhile, KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli appeared to support amendment of the Constitution, saying a relook at the Supreme Law is necessary to align it to the country's economic index.
So we have a big problem. We need to revisit the Constitution, to streamline the Constitution in line with our economic performance.
About 450,000 civil servants are now heading to the bank on Monday for their pay, which has been delayed for about 2 weeks. Samugina, KTN, Nairobi.
Of course, for the in-depth and comprehensive details of what the new millionaires have received from Treasury, get your copy of this standard on Sunday, that is tomorrow, in just a few hours when you wake up. Let's move on. And KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli has criticized the government's handling of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's security detail controversy, terming the state's approach as disrespectful. His comments come at the end of a week in which the Interior Secretary Joseph Olelenku moved to streamline Raila and his squad running mate Kalonzo Musyoka's security entitlement after government spokesman Muthui Kariuki ignited a war of words over the issue.
Hawa ni leaders, inataka mtu kama hata sio minister, deputy president or the president anaita hawa pole pole, anawaambia gentlemen, we want to organize together your security. Wewe una magari karibu 24, so utuletee 10 ubaki na 12, ama utuletee 12 ubaki na 10. Pole, quietly. Because when you also retire, you require comfort and security.
All right, so a keen visitor to Luanda Township along the Kisumu-Busia Highway would notice a unique phenomena where residents mingle freely with mentally disturbed persons. Though an official nationwide urban census of mentally disturbed persons has not been undertaken, some people have concluded that Luanda town might be having the largest concentration of mentally disturbed persons. But as KTN's Patrick Amimo reports, mental specialist Dr. Lukoya Tuoli says the prevalence of mental illness across the country is almost uniform, though substance abuse could lead to mental illness as well.
Luanda Township is one of the busiest economic hubs along the Kisumu-Busia highway that links Kenya with Uganda to the west. On market days, which fall on Tuesdays and Saturdays, it is not unusual to find mentally disturbed persons mingling freely with residents. Some of them can be seen begging for food or just cajoling people for money. This particular locality is famed for bank smoking, and some residents believe it could be contributing to the rising numbers of mentally disturbed persons.
Wakati mtu anavuta ile bangi, anakuja anaongezea hiyo, kichwa inamwacha, anabaki hivyo.
I mean, people who are at high risk of developing a mental illness are at high risk also of using substances, including alcohol, including cannabis. And so, it doesn't surprise me.
Ya madawa kama banki iko, lakini tunapambana kabisa na hali hiyo.
The mentally disturbed of Luanda loiter freely and go about their activities peacefully. But some feign mental illness to solicit funds. Indeed, residents maintain that one proclaimed madman in Luanda only acts mad during market days to beg for food for his family. Because of their visibility, some have concluded that Luanda could be hosting a large number of mentally disturbed persons. But this is subject to debate.
Ujue ukienda in some towns utapata kwamba hawa wendazimu wenye tunaona wanadhulumiwa huko, labda unapata wanarepiwa ama anaweza ingia karibu na duka la mtu anapigwa. But here in Luanda such like cases haziko. Then ni kama hawa wendazimu ukiwatafuta vizuri na uangalie, si watu wa kutoka hapa Luanda, ni watu wa kutoka eneo mbalimbali. Wanakuja hapa sababu sisi most people hapa Luanda tunawakaribisha.
And so it is not because of the placement of Luanda per se or the availability of cannabis that is making an appearance that people there are a lot of mentally ill people in Luanda. The prevalence of mental illness across the country is largely uniform, except for some specific mental illnesses that are related to traumatic experiences and so on.
Last year, police in Luanda were involved in an operation dubbed Operesheni Wazimu Rudi Nyumbani, which sought to reunite the mentally disturbed persons with their relatives and families. Dr. Lukoye says there should be integrated mental health services in all public hospitals across the country, with the government posting mental health nurses or clinicians for treatment and counseling. Patrick Amimo, KTN, Saturday Night Live.
Patrick Amimo there with a very interesting story from Luanda. Now, whenever Taita Taveta County hits the news, it's almost always about stories of hardship, sadness, and squatter problems. But tonight, KTN brings you an inspiring story of the only woman taxi driver in Taita Taveta County, Charity Muluki. How does she cope with the high-risk, male-dominated taxi driving business? KTN's Najma Ismail reports.
She handles her car like any other professional driver. In fact, better than many owners of personal cars. She does the preliminary checks on her car, ensuring that none of her clients would be disappointed on a quick journey, as most taxi customers are always in a hurry. Meet 25-year-old Charity, the driver of this Platts car, now a taxi. She has been plying the Taita Taveta road for close to 7 years. She is the only known woman taxi driver in the county. Though this is a plus for her, she recounts the many challenges she faces as she does her work.
Mtu kwa barabara ana driver sasa wanaume madharau hawakosi, manaka huyu ni mwanamke, wacha tukutishe kidogo, lakini mimi najiamini kwamba ungasitishiki.
Charity, who started out as a tout, recalls being mocked, as nobody, not even her family, would have expected her, a woman, to engage in a business seen by many as masculine.
Most of the wanaume wengi sana tulikuwa tunashangaa huyu mtoto amezaliwa hapa, tumemwona akisoma, hata imekuwa tena anaanza kuendesha magari, hatumwamini.
Some of her clients prefer being driven by Charity, and here is why.
Yeye ni mwaminifu. Nikimpigia simu kama nataka kwenda mahali, ananiambia kama yuko ama yuko.
But are the men just being men by preferring a lady taxi driver?
Na uhusiano wetu kabisa ni mteja na driver wake, hakuna uhusiano mwingine.
And with the risks and rigors of taxi car driving, Charity drives on one client after another. And this is just fine for her. Najma Ismail, KTN Saturday Night Live.
Now, can you imagine any Kenyan sending a direct emissaries to President Uhuru Kenyatta's family asking that they be friends? As it happens, a family in Taita was such close secret friends of Kenya's first President Jomo Kenyatta that they wish to renew the friendship with his son, current President Uhuru Kenyatta, and his extended family. Although most of the family members of Mzee Mwanyumba Zephania are old, they say it is time to renew their connection. But who are they? And why were they so close to Kenyatta? Here's the story of the hiding quarters of Jomo Kenyatta in Taita Hills.
Tucked deep inside the Taita Hills lies a historic scenic site unknown to many that may have well played a critical part into laying foundation for the East Africa democracies. During the colonial period, at the height of an uprising against the British colonists, the Taita Hills was a perfect hideout for rebellion leaders, including Kenya's founding President Jomo Kenyatta, Uganda's Milton Obote, and Tanzania's Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Being a dungeon, there will be no life leisures here. We are shown what was supposedly Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's bed during his stint at the caves. Others were forced to improvise banana leaves on the cold cave floors to act as their beds. The Taita people here would keep the hideout a top secret from outsiders. Locals here say Kenyatta preferred only a specific resident to serve him food in the forest. Mr. Mwanyumba Zephania, now 65 years old, will be Kenyatta's preferred choice to serve him food. The country's first president was highly secretive and cautious that he would advise Mwanyumba not to use the same path while delivering his food.
Watu ambao walikuwa hapa Western kulikuwa Masinde Mliro, Martin Shikuku, Nyanza province, Oginga Odinga, Asingo Oneko, Thomas Mboya. Alafu Rift Valley, Fred Kubai. Central, Jomo Kenyatta, James Gichuru, Brigadier Kagia, Ndiko Inange, na wenginewe. Alafu Nairobi area kulikuwa ni Pinto, ule Mhindi.
Kenyatta and other leaders were hidden in the Taita caves by the then chief, Miss Sylvian Manga. Manga, at 104 years now, would proceed to appoint Mwanyumba as Kenyatta's chef. No one else was allowed to access the caves except from herself and Mwanyumba. Now locals have urged President Uhuru Kenyatta to pay homage to the Taita people and visit the caves where his father was protected from his aggressors till he ascended into the country's leadership.
Kusema kweli, uhusiano ule tulikuwa na mzee ambaye ni mwanzilishi wa taifa hili ulikuja ukavurugika hapa katikati, na ulivurugika tena vibaya sana. Bado tunatafuta hiyo njia ya kuleta uhusiano pamoja, iwapo zile haki za Wataita zitarudi kikamilifu.
Kama mimi mzazi mwanamke nimeomba turudishe huo uhusiano, sisi Wataita na Bantu wetu, tusiwe na shoko zozote za ardhi hizi, tusisumbuane, tukae Kenya yetu moja na tupendane ndio.
The Taita Taveta County now wants the caves preserved and elevated into a historic site that can generate revenue for the county as well as empower the locals. They also want special recognition for the chief and chef that accorded Kenyatta and other leaders the protection they desperately needed, saying the two are equally heroes in their own rights.
Seeking a reconnection with the first family all the way from Taita. You are indeed watching Saturday Night Live. Thank you for staying with us. We are taking a short break, and just ahead, why sniffer dogs cost a fortune. You want to watch that.